When we were little, like many immigrant families, our parents took us back to Mexico every January. It was our annual adventure, a road trip back to the motherland. I always looked forward to it after Christmas break. My parents would call the school and claim some sort of family emergency that required us to leave the States for 2 weeks. The teachers would hand me thick packets of homework for those 14 days. Math sheets, reading logs, and writing prompts. It was their way of keeping me on track. To me, it was a small price to pay. As long as I kept my grades up and my teachers happy, there was no reason for my parents to hesitate pulling me out of school. The year was 2002, and everything went exactly as it always had. I collected my homework, stuffed it into my backpack, itching to hand off my math assignments to my cousin Sonia, the family's math and science whiz. The best part of the trip wasn't even the destination, it was the drive. We traveled in my dad's old Chevy CK 1500 with a brown camper shell to match. My sisters and I would pile layers of blankets and comforters in the back, turning it into one big slumber party on wheels. When it was our turn with the radio, we blasted whatever English pop CDs we'd packed. Britney Spears, NSYNC, Mariah Carey. When it was their turn, our parents rolled up the windows to the cab, leaving us to entertain ourselves. We had books, cards, snacks, and a shared sense of excitement that made the 32-hour drive fly by. I didn't mind the long hours. I loved them. Those road trips were the best memories of my childhood, a cocoon of laughter, music, and anticipation. I'd spent hours staring out the window, daydreaming about seeing my cousins. There was always so much to tell, so much to catch up on. The excitement always grew once we crossed the border and began climbing the winding roads into the monte, towards our parents' tiny hometown of Cuxpala. The town was small, barely 1,000 people, but the welcome was grand. As our dusty truck rolled through, smiling faces waved us in. "Llegaron los del norte!" they shout, crowding around as if we were celebrities. My favorite thing to do was stick my head out the window and breathe it all in. The smoky scent of burning wood, the damp earth after rain, the sweetness of bread baking somewhere nearby. That smell was Mexico. "Eres Betty?" someone would inevitably ask, and I'd nod, grinning shyly as the cobblestone streets shimmered under the fading sun. We were home. Those were some of the best days, 10 days of pure freedom. We ran wild through the town with our cousins, both from the States and those who lived there year-round. The plaza came alive with lights and laughter as the festivities began, music, food, games, and people dancing beneath strings of colorful banners that swayed in the cool evening air. It was the same every year, until that year. That January, something else came to the celebration, something that didn't belong to this world. It happened on the third night, the main night of the fiesta. The bandas were playing full blast in the plaza. Adults danced with cocktails in hand. Kids started between legs with sparklers, and the air was alive with joy. My aunt called my cousin Adi and me over. "Go to the house and bring back some sweaters. It's getting chilly." The house was only a few minutes away, just up a narrow cobblestone street passing by the town cantina, where the drunks lingered. We didn't want to deal with their stares or slurred jokes, so we took the long way. Down past the plaza toward the main road that led to the old church. then up the street that led up to our house. It added maybe 3 minutes, but it felt safer. Or at least we thought it would. The laughter and music faded behind us as we walked. The deeper we went, the quieter everything became, until the only sound left was the stomp of our shoes on the cobblestones. "Oh, it's colder here," Addie whispered. "Yeah, I guess the adults aren't being dramatic." We turned the corner, and a pale light flickered ahead, the lone lamppost near our street corner. That's when we saw it. At first, it looked like smoke, just a swirl of gray mist hovering beneath the light. As we drew closer, it seemed to move, almost as if it was trying to shape itself into existence, twisting and flowing into that of a man. My cousin gripped my hand. "You see that?" she whispered. "Shh, up, it's probably just..." The thing turned around. I froze. When he turned, I saw what looked to be a tail, a long zebra-looking tail swaying under his suit. He was wearing a black suit, a top hat. A long, thin cigar glowed between his fingers, its tips burning red in the dark. And then he smiled. When he smiled, his eyes glowed with the same hellish red. Then I saw his legs. Not legs. Chicken feet. Chicken feet that scratched against the cobblestones as he took a step towards us. Smoke curled around him like it was alive, whispering a language I couldn't understand, but I felt it. Fear. Panic. We ran. Screaming, we tore back down the street, tripping over the stones until the music from the plaza hit us like sunlight. "Did you see that?" Addie gasped. "You saw it, right? Tell me you saw it." We both nodded, shaking, still clutching each other's hands. The man in the black suit, the top hat, the cigar, the chicken feet, the long tail, the red eyes, and that smile, that terrible, knowing smile. We ran full speed past the awful thing and didn't even go inside our homes to get the sweaters. We just kept running, up our street, down the main road, past the cantina. We didn't care about the drunken creeps anymore. After what we'd just seen, they almost looked friendly. "You saw that? You saw that, right?" We shouted at each other over and over, desperate for confirmation that we weren't losing our minds, that our minds weren't playing tricks on us. Before we reached the plaza, Adi yanked me to a stop, her face pale under the yellow glow of the streetlights. "What did you see?" she demanded. I swallowed hard. It was a man in a suit, smoking a cigar, and then when he turned, "Chicken feet," we both said at the same time. "Yes," I whispered. "Chicken feet." Addie blinked fast, tears threatening to spill. "He was dressed like a Catrin," I finished for her. We stood there for a moment, breathing hard, our hearts pounding in the cold air. I want to be clear. We were only 12 years old. We were not drunk. We were not on drugs. We weren't imagining things. We were kids, and we knew what we saw. "What do we do?" I asked, my voice shaking. "Tell our moms," Adi said quickly, gripping my wrist. "They'll believe us." So we ran again, down the last stretch of the cobblestone street, back toward the sound of music and fireworks. My legs felt heavy, like I was running through mud. Every shadow made me flinch, afraid the thing might step out again. By the time we reached the plaza, we were out of breath. Our throats raw from yelling. We spotted our parents, sitting with some of the neighbors, laughing, beer bottles clinking together. Mama, Tia, Adi shouted, tugging at her mother's sleeve. We saw something by the house. They looked at us with confused faces. What happened? Where are the sweaters? No, listen, I cried. There was a man. Not a man. He had chicken feet. The adults exchanged looks, half concerned, half annoyed. My mom leaned closer, frowning. ¿Qué estás diciendo? You're not making sense. Did someone scare you? Addie shook her head furiously. He was wearing a suit, a hat, and his eyes were red. But our parents could barely hear us over the brass band blaring across the plaza. Our words were drowned in laughter and music. Okay, yeah, my aunt said, waving us off. Go sit down. You probably saw Don Chuy in his costume. It's the Fiestas week. He always dresses up. No, it wasn't a costume, I insisted. It wasn't a man. It was a thing, and he smiled at us. He knew we saw him. My mom sighed, rubbing her temples. All right. Oh, you guys are probably tired. Why don't you go home and just get to bed? Adi and I stood there staring at each other. Go back to that street? Not a chance. Behind us, fireworks exploded above the plaza, bright, loud, and beautiful. Then in between the burst of color, I thought I saw something else. A flicker of black with glowing red dots, like a shadow watching from the edge of the crowd. And when the last firework sizzled out, I could still smell it, that faint trace of cigar smoke. The next morning, I didn't want to move. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, feeling hollow, like something had drained all the life out of me. I felt awful. My window sat at a sharp angle from the lamppost outside. I could see the edge of it from my pillow, that pale iron silhouette that now felt like a threat. I didn't even want to look at it. I didn't want to risk seeing him again. But curiosity, or maybe fear, got the better of me. As I got dressed, I glanced down toward the door. I crept closer, inch by inch, lifting my head just enough to peer down the street. The lamppost came into view, still and silent in the daylight. I exhaled, empty, just like it should be. Then, a flash. That grin, wide, too wide, and those eyes, glowing red under the morning sun, staring right at me. I gasped and stumbled backward, heart pounding in my ears. The sound made me jump. I froze again, staring at the door, too terrified to breathe. I peeked back through the door. Nothing. The lamppost was empty. Maybe my mind was playing tricks on me. Maybe it was just a shadow of a branch or sunlight catching glass. Louder this time. Ya voy! I heard my mom call out, walking toward the front door. Mom, no, I tried to yell, but my voice came out strangled, trapped somewhere between my lungs and my throat. Then a familiar voice cut through the air. Tia, buenos dias. Is Betty awake? It was my cousin Sonia. A wave of relief washed over me, leaving me shaky but thankful. Moments later, she was standing in my doorway, hands on her hips. Why are you still in bed? She asked. We're supposed to go put the gifts in the kids' shoes for Dia de los Reyes Magos. Her voice softened when she saw my face. Hey, are you okay? I hesitated. I didn't know how to explain what had happened without sounding insane. Adi had made me promise we'd never talk about it again. She said her whole body went cold, that something deep inside of her knew that we were in danger and she didn't even want to think about it. When I tried to bring it up again last night after our parents shut us down, she cut me off. Don't, she said. Please, just don't. Maybe it was Don Chui in costume. But even she didn't believe that. We'd both seen Don Chui later that night, dancing in the plaza, his usual costume glittering under the lights. That wasn't him. His jokes were harmless, even stupid sometimes. This was wicked. This was nightmarish. Adi knew it too. But denial was easier, safer. So I didn't push her. I let her keep her story, which meant I had no one to process the truth with. Until Sonia. She was older, calmer. She had that quiet seriousness people listened to. And when she asked again, "What's wrong?" I couldn't hold it any longer. I told her everything. The chicken feet, the scratching against the cobblestones, the black suit and top hat, the zebra-like tail that swayed behind him, the glowing red eyes that cut through the dark, but most of all, that nasty smile, the one that made my stomach twist and my body go rigid with instinctive terror. Sonia didn't interrupt me once. She stood there, arms crossed, listening carefully. Her face didn't change. No laughter, no disbelief, just a heavy, thoughtful frown. When I finished, the silence stretched. Then she finally spoke. "So," she said, "you saw El Catrin." "You've seen him too?" I asked, my voice breaking with desperate hope. Sonia shook her head slowly. "No, but a lot of people have. And they've all described him exactly the same way you just did. The man in the suit, a top hat, the cigar, red eyes, and the strange animal feet." I stared at her, my stomach tightening. She continued, "He appears under the lamppost, the one across from your house. Always the same one. Some have seen him behind the church too, but mostly there." For a moment I felt relief. I wasn't crazy. And maybe even better, it wasn't me that he was after. "So what is it?" I asked, leaning forward. "What is he?" Sonia sighed, crossing her arms. "No one really knows. There are a few theories, but the one everyone whispers about starts with a woman named Magdalena." I frowned. "Who's that?" "She used to live in that house at the bottom of your street," Sonia said, pointing toward the window. "The abandoned one?" She nodded. "Yeah, that one." A chill ran through me. I had never seen anyone go in or out of that place. The windows were boarded up, the walls cracked, vines crawling over the doorway like earth itself tried to swallow it. "I didn't realize anyone ever lived there," I murmured. "She did," Sonia said. "A long time ago. Magdalena was a town bruja. People went to her for rituals, healings, and spells. She helped some, scared others. But one day the town turned on her." "What happened?" Sonia's voice dropped low. "They caught her sacrificing animals behind the church." My throat went dry. "They called it demonic. She was consorting with something unholy. The town forced her to leave, but before she did," Sonia looked toward the window, her tone darkening, "she cursed the town." The air in the room seemed to thicken. "She told them," Sonia said, repeating the words as though she'd heard them many times before. "You are all hypocrites! You call yourselves holy, but your hearts are filthy. You carry the Virgin Mary through these streets in procesión, praying the rosary, while you ignore Doña Vita bleeding on her doorstep as her drunk husband beats her half to death. You do nothing. You pretend not to see. Sonia's voice grew sharper, harsher, like she was channeling the rage that had been buried for decades. You call yourselves good Catholics. You cross yourselves in public and whisper your sins in secret. You parade the Virgin through the streets, praising her while turning a blind eye to the women you destroy. Don Julio sits in the first pew every Sunday beside his wife, while his second family lives 2 streets over. Children who carry his eyes, but not his name. You scorn the widows and call them desperate. You spit at the women who sell their bodies to survive. Yet it's your men, your husbands, your brothers, your sons, who stumble in their beds after drowning themselves in mezcal. You worship your priest who calls me a demon, when even the shadows know the things that he's done in confession. The stolen money, the touches under the guise of God's work, and you call me evil? I'll go, she said, but you will never escape yourselves. You will look into the darkness you've ignored, and it will stare back at you. Sonia paused, watching me carefully. After that, she continued, strange things started happening. People would see the man you saw, always during the fiestas, always near the church or that lamppost. Some say he's the spirit she summoned that night. Others say he's what she became. I shivered. Became? Sonia nodded slowly. The embodiment of the town's hypocrisy, the elegant shadow of every man who sins and smiles about it. I shivered again. You mean? Yes, she said. El Catrin. Magdalena's words echoed in my head long after Sonia left, her truth lingering in the quiet of my room. We sat in silence for a while. Outside, the sounds of the festivities were beginning. It was the last day of the fiestas, and later tonight there would be a castillo of fireworks in the church courtyard. It had always been my favorite night. The toros made of fireworks would chase the townsfolk through the streets, turning everything into a giant game of hide and seek. I used to look forward to it all year. But now I couldn't stop thinking about Magdalena and that thing. If even part of what Sonia said was true, then everything suddenly made sense. It was as if Magdalena's curse had peeled back a layer of Cuxpala I had never noticed before. Once I saw it, I couldn't unsee it. It felt like I grew up all at once. I started to understand things I had only sensed before. Like why we always walked around the cantina to avoid the borrachos and their stares. I thought it was normal, but everyone was just going along to get along, avoiding uncomfortable truths. The realization tainted Cuxpala for me. Part of me wanted to learn more about that figure, to understand how it had manifested here, who else had seen it. But another part of me just wanted to forget. When it was finally time to leave, I welcomed it. I wanted to go home, far away from this town. Our parents said their goodbyes. Adios, los vemos el próximo año, they promised. But silently, I hoped that wouldn't be true. As my dad's truck turned down the street, I looked back one last time. Under the dim lamppost stood a woman, smiling at me.